Good evening, you're watching News Mongolian World. I'm your host, Anurkan Batar. And for top stories, in the first half of 2022, economic growth of Mongolia reached 1.9% year-to-year. Green grove in memorial of repression was established in the national park. This year marks the 80th anniversary of the higher education sector in Mongolia. And for the news, stay tuned. Growth in most of developing East Asia and the Pacific region rebounded in 2022 from the effects of COVID-19, while China has lost momentum because of its continued measures to contain the virus, a World Bank reported on its East Asia and Pacific Economic Update.
According to the report, in the first half of 2022, economic growth of Mongolia reached 1.9% year-to-year, despite a contraction in early 2022, mainly driven by agriculture, trade, and the services sectors. Animal herd size recovered from last year's culling due to the spread of foot-and-mouth disease amid favorable weather conditions in spring and led to a growth of 11.3% in the first half of year-to-year in the sector. Moreover, the reopening of the economy following the removal of COVID-19 mobility restrictions continues to support domestic trade and services except transportation, while operation of multiple border ports with China in recent months supported coal exports. Border frictions and significant coal inventories continue to limit mining activities and transportation services associated with these exports. From the demand side, the continued income support program, labor market recovery, and increasing wage incomes amid the reopening of the economy boosted private consumption in the first half of 2022, but momentum decelerated in the second quarter. When it comes to challenges, the war in Ukraine led to rising import prices in Mongolia, especially for food and energy, while ensuring international sanctions have complicated the processing of cross-border payments for imported fuel products from Russia. A large current account imbalance persists, and interventions by the central bank to stabilize the currency have depleted foreign exchange reserves to roughly 3 months of import coverage. The refinancing of upcoming large external public debt service payments, including a large debt repayment by the Development Bank of Mongolia, will be challenging as investors' risk aversion towards high-debt countries is increasing and global interest rates are rising. Soaring domestic inflation represents a major challenge for monetary policy. To address those issues, the Bank of Mongolia has started to tighten monetary policy, but large quasi-fiscal activity in the banking sector continue to fuel credit growth and undermine monetary policy transmission.
Between 1937 and 1941, 32,000 people of more than 60 nationalities have become victims of repression led by the cruel politics and were executed in Moscow. Sadly, more than 400 of them were citizens of Mongolia. Green grove in memorial of repression was established in the national park in memory of the victims of political repression and to rehabilitate their names and reputation.
The illuminated statues seen here are a memorial to 249 Mongolian citizens who lost their lives in foreign countries. It is emphasized that the people who were executed were intellectuals, political activists, and patriots who were loyal to their country and religious views.
These people didn't commit any crimes, but they bravely spoke up for the independence of their country, spoke up for their property, and fought for their culture and religion. Every year, on the Day of Remembrance of the victims of political repressions, we pay tribute to them, and their children lay flowers in memory of their ancestors.
In Russia, monuments were established about 30 kilometers from the embassy of Mongolia in Moscow. At that time, we received the dossiers of 34 people from the Department of Security of the Russian Federation. The monument with the names of those 34 people engraved were built in Russia. Continuing the rehabilitation task, additional 249 people's names were recovered from archive.
Experts say that it was not easy to get rehabilitation documents in Mongolian prime ministers, public figures, and intellectuals summoned to Moscow and executed during the years of repression. As a result of many years of hard work, our country is the only one from more than 60 nationalities that have obtained and uncovered the archival materials of wrongly persecuted people. This is one of a kind of history that should be never forgotten and that should be never repeated.
This year marks the 80th anniversary of the establishment of higher education sector in Mongolia. Experts in this sector emphasize the need to develop universities as research-based institutions which can meet the demands of the labor market.
From 1990 to 2010, the number of universities increased and reached more than 90. On the other hand, this is related to the desire of citizens to obtain higher education, but from the other hand, researchers say that quality does not meet the needs of society and its development. However, officials say that this situation is slowly changing in recent years.
Instead of making structural changes, universities should develop into institutions that solve the problems challenging whole Mongolia and its communities rather than competing by ranking. Universities should be pure research institutions, not just schoolrooms where students learn. We can understand that further steps are being taken to develop cooperation between Mongolian state universities and state-owned schools in the form of training, research and industrial complex.
There are 8 state universities in Ulaanbaatar and 3 national research institutes. More than 100 private research institutions are also operating.
As a research-based university, the National University of Mongolia has created the conditions for funding from multiple sources. Experts say that number of young people studying natural sciences has decreased in recent years.
There are relatively few children studying chemistry. Therefore, I would like to say that it is very important for the development of Mongolia if students study natural science like chemistry.
Study shows that in the coming years, there will be a high demand for natural science experts in Mongolia. However, experts in the field of education point out that number of students choosing this field is decreasing year by year.
Thank you for staying with us. Now let's take a look at the currency exchange rates provided by Mongol Bank. Here's the international news from our partner agencies. Japanese Defense Minister Yasukazu Hamada on Thursday condemned North Korea's launch of 2 short-range ballistic missiles towards its eastern waters. Hamada said Pyongyang's recent series of launches have violated the United Nations Security Council resolutions and that Japan had protested to North Korea via their embassies in Beijing.
The launches were North Korea's 6th round of weapons tests in less than 2 weeks, adding to a record number of missile launches this year that has prompted condemnation from the United States and other countries.
Since the beginning of this year, North Korea has repeatedly launched missiles at unprecedented frequentness and by new methods. It has launched ballistic missiles in quick succession for the past few days, and North Korea is one-sidedly escalating provocations for the 6th time in a short period of time since the end of September.
On Tuesday, North Korea staged its most provocative weapons demonstration since 2017, firing an intermediate-range missile over Japan, forcing the Japanese government to issue evacuation alerts and halt trains.
The series of actions by North Korea threatens the peace and stability of Japan, the region and the international community, and we absolutely cannot tolerate them. It also violates UN Security Council resolutions, and we lodged a strong protest through the Beijing embassy.
After the North's intermediate-range missile launch, the United States and South Korea also carried out their own live-fire drills that have so far involved land-to-land ballistic missiles and precision-guided bombs dropped from fighter jets.
It is difficult for us to give a definitive answer regarding North Korea's intentions, but no matter what the intentions are, North Korea's repeated ballistic missile launches are absolutely impermissible, and it is considerable missile technology. Advancement cannot be overlooked.
North Korea has fired nearly 40 ballistic missiles over more than 20 different launch events this year. using the stalled diplomacy with the United States and Russia's war on Ukraine as a window to speed up arms development.
North Korea launched two short-range ballistic missiles toward the eastern waters Thursday after the United States redeployed an aircraft carrier near the Korean peninsula in response to Pyongyang's previous launch of a nuclear-capable missile over Japan.
The latest launches suggest North Korean leader Kim Jong-un is determined to continue with weapons tests aimed at boosting his nuclear arsenal in defiance of international sanctions. The missiles were launched 22 minutes apart from the North's capital region and landed between the Korean Peninsula and Japan, South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff said in a statement.
North Korea fired two short-range missiles. The day before yesterday, the North launched an IRBM with a range of 4,000 kilometers targeting Guam, and it flew over Japan. Guam is home to a major strategic assets that will be deployed on the Korean peninsula in case of an emergency. And Okinawa has a U.S. military presence. Considering these facts, the IRBM aimed to hit strategic assets that will be deployed on the Korean peninsula. As the situation is not so good, USS Ronald Reagan, which was moving to its next destination after participating in the South Korea-US joint training, returned to our waters around 8 p.m. yesterday. As we have said before, North Korea continues to launch missiles one after another and make provocation as part of North Korea's own development of ballistic missiles and its defense plan.
The first missile flew 350 kilometers and reached a maximum altitude of 80 kilometers, and the second flew 800 kilometers on an apogee of 60 kilometers. South Korea's military said it has boosted its surveillance posture and maintains readiness in close coordination with the United States. The U.S. Indo-Pacific Command said the launches didn't pose an intermediate threat to the United States or its allies, but still highlighted the destabilizing impact of North Korea's nuclear and ballistic missile programs. The launches were North Korea's sixth round of weapons tests in less than 2 weeks, adding to a record number of missile launches this year that has prompted condemnation from the United States and other countries. Moon Hong-sik, a South Korean Defense Ministry spokesperson, said North Korea's accelerating tests also reflect an urgency to meet Kim's arms development goals.
More than 30 people, primarily children, were killed Thursday when a gunman opened fire in a childcare center in northeastern Thailand, authorities said.
Police General Achayong Kraitong said the shooting occurred early in the afternoon in the center in the town of Nomboa Lamphu. He said the attacker killed 30 people before taking his own life. He had no more details. A spokesperson for a regional public affairs office said 26 deaths have been confirmed so far. 23 children, 2 teachers, and 1 police officer. According to Thai media reports, the gunman also used knives in the attack and then fled the building. Photographs showed at least 2 bodies on the floor of the center covered in white sheets. Several media outlets identified the assailant as a former police lieutenant colonel from the region, but there was no immediate official confirmation. The Daily News newspaper reported that after fleeing the scene of the attack, the assailant returned to his home and killed himself along with his wife and child.
Now let's take a look at our regular feature on sports. Indonesian police said Thursday they are bringing criminal charges against 3 officers and 3 civilians for their roles in the deaths of 131 people when police fired tear gas inside their soccer stadium, setting off a panic run for the exits in which many were crushed. National Police Chief Listio Sigit Prabowo said the suspects include the head of PT Liga Indonesia Bureau, which administers the country's top professional soccer division and is responsible for ensuring that stadiums have a proper operating certificate. He said the stadium in Malang City did not meet the requirements for certification and had not been properly verified. Prabowo said charges are also being brought against the chief executive of the match, the chief security officer, and 3 police officers. The charges include negligence leading to death or serious injury and violations of Indonesia's sports law and ethical code for officials. Maximum penalties range up to 5 years in prison. He said the Malang police head of operations is believed to have known that FIFA, the international soccer governing body, has advised against the use of tear gas in stadiums. There will be different punishment for the police officers. If they are found guilty depending on the crime, they will either be demoted or terminated. If we find any of them used force against minors or children, they will experience the heaviest punishment. According to recommendations by FIFA and the Asian Football Confederation, exits at stadiums must be unlocked at all times during a game for safety purposes. Those rules don't necessarily apply to domestic or national leagues, but nevertheless are a safety standard, as is the recommendation against the use of tear gas as a crowd control measure. About 42,000 Arema FC fans attended Saturday's match, in which Arema was defeated 3-2 by Persebaya in its first at-home loss to its rival in 23 years. Following the defeat, angry fans rushed into the infield, prompting police to fire the tear gas. The Football Association of Indonesia has banned Arema from hosting any matches attended by its supporters in Malang until next year. Argentine state-owned airline Aerolíneas Argentinas on Thursday unveiled a plane that will take Argentine fans to the Qatar 2022 World Cup to follow the team. Aerolíneas Argentinas presented this Thursday its aircraft for the World Cup in Qatar. The plane is an Airbus A330-200, which received a special scheme in the company's Hangar 5 at Ezeiza Airport. The aircraft was covered with stickers of Argentina's national team players, with an image of Lionel Messi on the tail of the Airbus A330. Also, the fuselage carries the Adidas Argentine jersey that will be worn by the national team in Qatar 2022. The plane, an Airbus A330-200, has giant graphics of the Argentine players Lionel Messi, Angel Di Maria and Rodrigo de Paul, as well as the shield of the Argentine Football Association. The work was done on the plane with lacquered vinyls in accordance with the safety standards established by the aircraft manufacturer and Aerolíneas. In total, there are 350 square meters of aeronautical plotting. In July, Aerolíneas Argentinas and the Argentine Football Association signed an agreement whereby the airline became a digital sponsor of the Argentine Soccer Association. Also, an airplane that will act as a flying museum in honor of the late soccer icon Diego Maradona has been unveiled in Argentina in May of this year. The Tango D10S, which has been financed by the Argentine fintech company, is to fly around his home country before eventually traveling to Qatar for the FIFA World Cup in November. It will also visit Barcelona and Naples, where Maradona led Napoli to its only two Italian league titles in 1987 and 1990. The plane features a picture of Maradona, who died of a heart attack in November 2020, kissing the World Cup trophy on the fuselage, while his face is also on the tail. Here's the weather forecast of all major cities. Well, that's all for today, and thank you for staying with us. We'll see you next week with more news and updates. Have a nice weekend. Goodbye.